Hi, my name is Stephen D. Snyder, and I'm sitting on the world-famous John Lennon educational tour bus, and I am very, very pleased to be sitting next to one of the premier sound design artists and audio mixing engineers and music producers, Mr. Damian Taylor. Nice to see you. Nice to meet you. How you doing?
Good. Doing very, very, very well, thanks.
Good,
yeah.
good. How long have you been in the audio business, doing what you do?
Well, the audio business is a funny transition, but in a way you could say I've been in studios since I was 18 in one form or another. I started off, found an engineer when I lived in New Zealand who just let me go and sit in on his sessions, and I did that at the same time as doing a part-time course. But I started playing music when I was 6. My parents put me on piano, and I stopped a few years later, then did trumpet till I was like 13, and then played in grunge bands because I'm of that generation at high school, and then really got into recording very heavily when I got a 4-track in my bedroom. I sold my mountain bike, I think, to buy a 4-track when I was 16, and then didn't go outside for 2 years, and just got really into recording. So as a result, I'm a terrible musician, but in terms of recording and my love for that, that's been constant since my mid-teens, pretty much.
You brought up a good point. Now, what you do, how does that collaborate with the musician itself? I mean, you're an artist in your own right, so talk a little bit about that process of how you work really well with those artists.
Well, it's very nice of you to say such nice things about me, but I think I'm kind of a terrible musician, but I'm a very musical person, and I think from even just my experiences, say, playing in brass bands or working with a 4-track or playing in teenage bands or whatever, it's like you know enough about what it's like to try and hit these instruments. Like, I've tried to play drums with headphones on, so I can at least identify with a drummer, but then, I also, my energy then went into how to make that stuff come out of the speakers, so it makes a lot more sense for me to work with a musician who's a far better player than I am, and I can at least kind of toggle onto what they're doing and bring it into whatever way we're making a record, if that makes sense.
So you're really fine-tuning and putting that cherry on top.
Yeah, kind of thing. I mean, I think I realized pretty early on that you get the best results if you make your artists as empowered as possible, if that makes sense. So I more just try and create the right circumstance for people to do things. And, sometimes that might involve them staring at the back of my head for 8 hours while I program, but fundamentally, you're just trying to give them the resources they need. And then it's almost like, I think when you empower the people you work with, then they almost lead the way for you, and then you, technically know how to keep building that road for them or
Sure.
something. Yeah, it's a bit of a flawed metaphor, but hopefully that makes sense.
Well, you brought up a good point. This kind of road, the road you took, and the road that several students like to take. So if you could give some students advice, or people that really want to, let's say, that aren't in a program, that really want to do what you do, what advice would you give them?
I mean, it's an interesting one. I think it's changed a lot in recent times because, traditionally you'd say go and try and be a runner in a big studio and then hang out until something happens, and those studios aren't really there anymore. So I think it's a 2-part answer. The first part I'd say is figure out where the things you're most excited about are happening and then go there. And for me, I moved from New Zealand to London in 1997. So I was really into MoX and drum and bass and weird guitar bands from over there. But in this day and age as well, I think the access that you have to incredible recording tools can't be overstated. It's my laptop is way more powerful than any studio I worked at in the early 90s or something like that, early mid-90s. So I kind of really encourage people now to if you want to produce and engineer records, just start recording your friends. Go out and find people that you like and just record them for free and just make a ton of stuff basically and put it out there. Find a friend who's a filmmaker and make weird videos. There's an artist whose records I've just produced finishing, and I found him on YouTube because him and his friends made some mad videos. And I think the playing field's been leveled a lot in that if you do something extraordinary and interesting, it can find people. Not to say it'll instantly give you a career, but it's a good way to get that first foothold. So I think if you sit there kind of waiting to get a job and then for everything to happen, that's a perfectly valid thing to happen, is to get a job, obviously. But, don't sit there waiting for some opportunity that's going to suddenly change everything overnight, because it's not going to happen. And the other thing is, when you have an opportunity, you want to be ready to take the most of it. So if you've been messing around recording for years with your friends, then you'll be in a much better place to deliver, basically, if you get a shot elsewhere.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned your laptop is really powerful. What
Yeah.
types of programs do you use that really hones your craft?
Well, I mean, I've been using Pro Tools for most of my career, pretty much. You know, I started off, like I said, on a 4-track, but then worked on 2-inch tape, but then, like, I wound up getting a lot of work doing Pro Tools. So Pro Tools has been huge, and I remember being so excited when, like, the Unbox came out. It's like, wow, you can put it on your laptop. So I've done a lot there, but I mean, I also learned to program in this language called Max MSP. Which allows you to kind of create your own musical systems, and it's like a data and audio processing system, and we used a lot of that for writing the Björk album. That was like, we were using that almost like as an instrument, and then Pro Tools was like our tape machine and our studio hub. But I've tried quite a lot of different programs over the years. Like for live performance, I've used Ableton Live, but Pro Tools has always been like, you know, home in a way. But, you know, I think for people starting out as well, it's almost like just pick something and start using it, you know, just get on with it. And yeah, I think if you distract yourself too much about the technical questions, like, do I need to learn this thing or that thing, then you can burn up too much creative energy in a way. And it's what that old adage about like learning one thing and really well is, I think, powerful.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah. What are you working on nowadays? What any big projects coming up that you can talk about? Or?
Well, the guy I just mentioned, who I found on YouTube, is called Diamond Rings, and he's actually been signed to EMI, which is pretty cool. And I'm also in the early stages of co-producing an album for The Killers, who are from Las Vegas, which I'm really excited about because I met them on tour, I think in 2007.
Nice.
And really liked them. Like I loved some of their records as well. So kind of just looking forward to getting back into that, basically.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. Now, one last thing, if you could do it all over again,
Yeah.
You've worked with a variety of really talented artists, and you've really taught yourself, and you've really explored the different areas. You know, you talked about you sold your mountain bike in order to buy your first program in your set. If you could do it all over again, what would you do differently with respect to your career, or would you do anything differently?
I don't think I would, in a way. You know, there've been a few tough and a few lean days in there, but it's been a blast. Like, I really don't think of it, technically speaking, I go to work, but I get to make music all day. And, you know, I've got my own studio now, and I just, like, play music really, really loud, 24 hours a day. You know? So it's pretty cool. I mean, there's certain insights that go, oh, well, I've learned this thing now, and, you know, if I'd done that mix that I did 5 years ago, I might have done it a bit differently. But if that's really your profoundest regrets, then, then we're in pretty good shape.
And the last question is, where do you see the industry heading, the sound industry and the recording industry and the mixing? How do you see it going next?
I'm going to admit to not being psychic. I honestly have no idea. I mean, we all want to make predictions about technological trends, or like I was alluding before to the fact that the tools that we have it's amazing what you have access to. And actually, the knowledge that we have access to now is unbelievable. Like, you know, say in 1994, if I could have gone online and seen like 50 episodes of Dave Pensado's YouTube show, talking to like all the most amazing people making records on the world, like I would have died. So I think in a way we're possibly poised at people's craft being elevated. It feels like an interesting time now that, like, for me, I've kind of accepted that in a way the old traditional studio system still exists a bit, but it's not the norm anymore. So I think it's all about like people being independent and forward thinking and trying to like do things off their own back. You know, I think it's going to be a lot more of a nimble time where, you know, things change quickly, but by the same token, the kind of price of entry into getting something really amazing done isn't too high. Sure. So yeah, but it all boils down to like good music. You know, like we always want to bang on about the technology and this and that, and it's like if you do something that's amazing and that has real feeling in it, that's what you notice. Like one of my favorite records in the last few years was the first Tune Yards album that she recorded with like a dictaphone and a little editing program on a PC, and it sounds terrible but so amazing, you know.
Sure.
And I think just stuff like that is a great example of like just, you know, play from your heart, and whether you're using a computer or a drum kit or whatever. And that's, you know, things always change, but it always comes back to that. We're just trying to communicate emotion to people, and that's never going to change.
Good stuff. All right. Well, Damian, I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you
Nice
very
to meet
much. This is Stephen Snyder with the very talented Damian Taylor on the John Lennon Educational Tour bus, and thank you very much.